Hypothetically, if I ate the same amount of protein, could I put on the same amount of muscle in a deficit as I do in a surplus? This comment is in response to one of my videos in which I mentioned we do have evidence that even trained individuals can lose fat and gain muscle at the same time, and the results are optimized by eating a higher protein diet. And understandably, this raises the question of whether or not an individual can gain the same amount of muscle in a deficit as they do in a surplus without gaining all of the excess body fat. We don't currently have any studies looking directly at a surplus versus a deficit, and looking at how much muscle the participants gain, but we do have a few studies that give us a direction. This study looked at the effects of different dietary energy intakes following a resistance training bout on muscle mass and body fat in bodybuilders. They took 11 people and split them into two groups. One group that consumed 67.5 calories per kilogram after their exercise session, and another group that consumed 50 calories per kilogram after the exercise session. They did indeed find that the group consuming more total calories gained more body fat. However, they also gained more than twice as much muscle. Therefore, the caloric surplus afforded them both more body fat but also more muscle mass. Another study looked at the acute effects of energy deprivation on skeletal muscle protein synthesis. Simply, this study had two phases, one phase in which participants ate at their caloric maintenance, and one phase in which participants ate in a 20% energy deficit. But in both phases, they ate the same amount of dietary protein. They found that the group in an energy deficit lost 1 kilogram of body weight, whereas the group at energy maintenance didn't lose any, but their fractional synthetic rate was reduced by 19%, which is basically just a fancy way of saying the amount of muscle proteins that they produced after the consumption of protein was reduced by about 19% compared to the participants on a weight maintenance diet. Therefore, this study gave us an indication that at the same amount of dietary protein, individuals would gain more muscle in an energy surplus as they do in an energy deficit, but they may gain a little bit less body fat. Therefore, for me, one practical takeaway is that during that period of time that you are trying to lose the body fat that you gained in an energy surplus, it would be pertinent to have a higher protein intake and prioritize weight training. Because if you don't, you may lose the additional muscle that you put on because you were in an energy surplus. And the last thing worth mentioning is we know that excess body fat alters the muscle protein synthetic response to nutrition and exercise. That is, if you are already over fat, you could eat as much additional calories and protein as you would like, and your muscle protein synthetic response to exercise and protein ingestion would still be impaired due to your excess body fat. Therefore, in a scenario in which someone is already over fat, going into a caloric surplus in the hopes of gaining muscle may actually set them further back from their end goal, because they are further impairing their capacity to build new muscle proteins. And in this case, they may actually gain more muscle if they were in an energy deficit.